Hello, this is the Denver Protest Podcast. It is Sunday, August 10th, and the evening. I am Constant Gardner, and here with me is my lovely co-host, Bug.
Hey, folks. Hope you're having a good Sunday. Or it's Tuesday now.
Yeah, whenever you listen to this, we hope you're having a good day. AJ is out today. He is definitely not involved in any Kennedy-related conspiracy theories. That's not what he's doing. He's not, in the book depository. So, yeah, just a little shout out to all my JFK conspiracy folks. I just spent the whole weekend binging TrueAnon's coverage of that, and my brain is cooked. But we're excited to be here to talk to you about the past week in protests. So without further ado, why don't you take it away there, Bug?
Yeah, gladly. Honestly, it's kind of been a quiet week. We've continued that that unfortunate downward trend of turnout and just events happening. I don't think the Tesla takedowns are happening anymore. I can't find any information on that. And our folks who run the missing and murdered Indigenous women protest are having to take a break for a bit, so those won't be happening for a while. We will be sure to let you know when they do start back up, and I'm sure they will be starting back up because those folks have a lot of energy.
Definitely. It's hard to be out at a week. I mean, it's hard enough to just record a podcast once a week. I can't even imagine how hard it is to be out, doing a protest for hours every single week. So we hope they, have a good break and look forward to their return when they have the capacity.
Yeah, agreed. But things we do still have going on, the vigils that are happening outside of the GEO detention facility are still happening every week on Monday evenings. The Fox takedowns have still been happening. And then CD7 Watermelon have continued with their pro-peace vigils for Palestine. And there's a group of folks who have been outside of Gabe Evans' office every Friday in the morning. I don't think we've talked about them too much.
That's been going on for a while. That's been going on since like February. So shout out to those people.
Yes. I was going to those pretty religiously before my work schedule changed, and I just haven't been able to make it back to them. But really kudos to those people for continuing to get out there, because I know it's hard to sustain that energy. It's hard. And so I really kudos to all of you who keep showing up. Like, it's important to do.
Especially when you're trying to run a politician out of office and make them miserable. It's like, you got to keep that momentum up and be relentless. So
and this dude just straight up lies. Because he's my representative, and I've, contacted him, and it's just, oh my God, literally just bald-faced fucking lies. It's unsurprising, but it's just insulting and it's infuriating.
I mean, that's the Republican way. I mean, that's the politician way, but I've heard that he's particularly egregious. Like, he's a particularly bad one. So yeah, fuck that guy. Go yell at his office.
And people who have claimed that they know him and in real life say that he's just super slimy, just like a total brown noser, which fits. I mean,
a slimy politician.
Yeah. Who would have ever thought?
I don't believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, finding true allies within the mainstream doesn't. They're gross. They're gross for a reason. They're part of the swamp for a reason.
For sure.
For sure. Gross making that comparison. But we do need to drain the swamp. But that's the problem, is the people calling for the swamp to be drained in that way are usually
literal swamp monsters. They are the swamp monsters.
Yeah. Yes. So they want to drain the swamp of competition.
It's a conflict of interest. We're sick of it.
Yeah.
What else happened this last week?
Um, I did forget to mention the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, have launched an anti-Palantir campaign. And they had their first protest for it this past week. I don't actually know how the turnout was in terms of numbers. I did see in the DSA Slack, because I am a DSA member, that it was a good,
Yeah.
like they felt good about the action. So that's good. We want to be feeling good about our actions. We want to be making that the protest was outside of Palantir's headquarters in the middle of a workday. And I know these corporations typically have they'll shut down buildings because they don't want to let the undesirables in. And so that kind of disruption, just inconveniencing people, even if it's not Palantir and it's just other people who work in the building, like your lease sharing with this fucking evil ass corporation, you deserve to be inconvenienced too, because your voice matters. And if you push for them to get pushed out of the building, if enough people do it, like, man, that's change we need.
I think what we're saying is, if you work in the Palantir building, you should be mean to the Palantir people if you see them, like at the food court or whatever. I think you should bully them. Not legally, don't beat them up or anything, but maybe give them a dirty look in the bathroom. If they need you to pass some toilet paper under the stall, just don't do it. Just leave them there. Shit like that. Don't let them sit at your table. Shit like that. Yeah, fuck them. Fuck Palantir. And that is going to be an ongoing thing. I expect there to be more actions, anti-Palantir actions, which of course we will cover when we talk about upcoming stuff. Also, just wanted to make a quick note about I'm also a DSA member. DSA had our national convention in Chicago this past weekend. It happens every 2 years. I ran for a delegate spot and did not win, which was tragic. I considered January 6th thing DSA and by force. But the problem with that plan is that Denver DSA doesn't have a physical location. So like I would have had to reserve the Washington Street Community Center like after the Tai Chi people and try to January 6th that. And it just the juice didn't seem worth the squeeze. But I thought honestly, my feelings were hurt. I was really sad. And imagine my dismay and my suffering when I saw that my very own parasocial boyfriend, Hassan Hasanabi Piker, was at the fucking DSA convention in Chicago. The FOMO that I am experiencing cannot be understated. It cannot be overstated. I'm not even really sure. It cannot be stated. I am so fucking pissed. Denver DSA, if any of you are listening, I will never forgive you. I will never forget what you took from me. I could have met Hassan and it could have been the time. I'm sure that I'm his type and I would have been very normal and not weird about it. So I am really pissed at you guys for taking this away from me, and you're very lucky that I'm too lazy to January 6th, the Democratic Socialists of America Denver chapter. But seriously, though, a lot of my friends did get to go to convention, and there were some pretty exciting. There were some shakeups internally within DSA, and DSA as an organization has moved demonstrably left. So we're not going to talk about all of we're not going to talk about the particulars of that because I want to wait for the comrades to come back and get the full report on what passed and what didn't and all the scuttlebutt. So we may talk about that next week or the following week. But yeah, just fuck you guys for not voting for me. So I never got to meet Hassan. I will never forgive you. And that's my little DSA corner of the week.
I think that's some deserved ire, honestly. Like, it's what they have kept from you. It's a tragedy. Like,
God, he's so hot and he's so smart and his politics are so good. He just yells his politics
heavy.
No, I mean, really, those are the thighs and calves of a man who does not skip leg day.
I've watched him squat.
That man, he will squat 300 pounds like it's nothing. Yes, give me more of it. But yeah, so no Hassan for me this time. We'll see again in 2 years if DSA if we haven't all been thrown into camps by then. So yeah, I think we also, since we're recapping the protests from last week, there was Rage Against the Regime, which was
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. What is time?
Yes,
That
and
was
I
two
think we
weeks
did
ago.
talk about it in our last
Did
episode.
we did, but there's
But there has
been
been kind of
some developments. Do you want to tell us about the developments?
Yeah.
Okay.
So an article came out a couple days ago detailing two separate alleged assaults against elderly people. And the article is honestly like it's really bad. Like it's very biased and like there was no, like it's very clear that there was no follow-up work on behalf of or not on behalf of, but on the part of the journalist,
Which
which
is a
is
fucking bummer, because that is Bennito Kelty, who has traditionally been a friend of the subreddit. I was interviewed by him back in February, I want to say, and he often reports on the protests that we have. He pulls, lists from our upcoming protest posts. So I get that he's a journalist, and so like he does have to present a balanced view, but he didn't present a balanced view this time. He only told one side of the story. What the fuck, Bennito? I thought we were cool.
And also, like, not just that he only reported one side of the story, but so the first assault that was detailed was an assault that allegedly happened at the Capitol. And the man who claims he was assaulted had a phone call with Bennito, is what the article sounds like, and is what, like, from people that we've talked to and heard from since the article has come out, that the man who alleges he was assaulted talked to Bennito and described what happened and has video of it, but did not share that video.
Okay.
And then there are multiple people claiming to also have video of what happened. And from multiple witnesses now, we have heard that the man who alleged assault, who says he is a photojournalist, was allegedly groping people, so sexually assaulting protesters. And that is why there was a physical retaliation against him, because he was sexually assaulting people. Which, like, come on, man. Like, you can't be fucking touching people. Like, that's just human code 101 is you don't touch other people without their consent. And if you do, well, I think, frankly, you fucking get what's coming to you.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer here, but I'm pretty sure that if some dude just comes up and grabs you, you're allowed to defend yourself if you feel threatened. You're not allowed to like shoot the dude, but like if a dude grabs my ass, like let it be known, men of Denver, if you grab my ass, I will be throwing hands.
Yes.
And you can say whatever you want about it. I think it's just really interesting that this dude claims he has a video, doesn't share it with the journalist, and declines to press charges, because he seems like the type who would fucking press charges. Just he seems very victim-y, and he seems like he's got an agenda that he's trying to push. So like, while I'm never gonna knock somebody, I'm anti-filing charges because I'm an abolitionist, it just gives you one pause. He said, oh, well, I'm not gonna file charges, but like I just wanted to go to the media instead. Like,
yes. Well, and also, just because he doesn't want to file charges doesn't mean files couldn't be charged, and the police let it go too.
Right.
And they were watching the whole thing, according to witnesses.
Right.
I was long gone from the Capitol by the time this supposedly happened. So I did not witness this.
If I got assaulted and I had video footage of it, I feel, if you have video of it and you don't want to share the video, it's because you were up to some fuck shit on the video. I don't know what the fuck shit was. I haven't seen the video, but yeah, I've heard that it was groping. But it's like, if you if I were him in this scenario and I had video evidence that I was, attacked unprovoked by these people, why the fuck would I not put it out there? Especially if you're like a journalist, you're an independent photojournalist, you're probably to a certain extent, trying to build a following and get engagement on your social media and stuff in the fucking, dystopian hellscape we live in. So like, why the fuck would you? Whatever. It's not passing the sniff test for me. And like, what the fuck kind of journalism was this, Bennito? I thought we were friends. I thought you were cool.
Yeah, it's very disappointing, and I'm very curious why the very just one-sided portrayal. Like, I don't know. It doesn't make much sense to me on that one.
No. It's not passing muster here. So, whatever. Be careful out there, people.
Yeah.
Did you say other people have?
I was going to say there was a second incident around Union Station, like later in the evening. And that one was on RTD grounds, apparently, because like RTD, like security or police or whatever, were handling it at first, but then the alleged assaulter fled. And so they were kind of like, okay, well, now it's DPD's jurisdiction. And DPD apparently never heard of anything happening. Like, DPD has no record of anything happening. So
your tax dollars at work, folks. DPD didn't even fucking know about this one. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like the pictures that are available of what happened don't really show anything clear happening. So it's just kind of like, I don't know, like, I don't know what kind of conclusions to draw from this other than it's really shitty reporting, and I'm very disappointed.
We're not mad, we're just disappointed, but also we're mad.
A little mad. A little mad. I mean, especially if people were groped, like if people were being sexually assaulted and we're just like, and by we, I mean like the publication, we're just like laissez-faire about it and take the first person to come to them with the story, essentially, we're going to run with their viewpoint. And then when witnesses, like literally, I mean, like if you go look at the Instagram post about this article, like the comments are full of people saying, I was there. That's not what fucking happened. This guy was assaulting people. Like, you have dozens of people saying that at this point, and you're not going to investigate. You're not going to actually investigate. Like, yeah, I'm angry about that.
Right. It seems like bare minimum journalism, but whatever. I'm glad, I guess, nobody was charged on any of this bullshit. But, I guess that's why we all have to record every fucking moment of our lives, just in case some dude comes up and grabs our asses.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, because like I want to be clear that like I don't support assaulting people. Especially like if you're like clearly in your black bloc from a protest, like, but also that's what makes it so sticky, is that it's like trying to demonize black bloc folks on shoddy reporting. Just, it reeks of state propaganda.
It sure does. It sure fucking does. They definitely will never miss a chance to paint our black bloc comrades in a negative light. So yeah, we hate to see it. We'll update obviously if any more info comes out around that.
Yeah.
All right, is that about it for our recap?
I think so. I think that is all of the fun stuff that we've had this past few weeks.
Yes. Okay. So we're going to get into our main topic here, which is police killings in the Denver area and in Colorado at large. This is a huge topic we've been wanting to do for a while. And I'm just going to say this for like my own peace of mind, that it's far more than we could ever cover in one episode. So expect that we will be covering it in various ways in the future. So this is kind of just an intro, and I do expect we'll do more deep dives because as an abolitionist, this is one of the issues that is most important to me. And I know it's really important to you too, Bug.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit. What we're going to get into today is just some of the statistics around and just information around police violence, specifically police caused deaths. Because some of the stats aren't just for shootings. It's also like when some dumbass drunk cop runs somebody over with their car and kills them, that counts as a police killing as well. But yeah, so we're gonna go over some of that information, and then we're gonna talk about a few key cases that have happened here in the Denver area in like the last 20 years or so. Yeah, and that's about it. So just to start off, you may be surprised to learn that Colorado consistently ranks 5th in the nation for police killings, despite ranking 21st in terms of population. What the fuck, Colorado? 5th in the nation for police killings. That means we talk all kinds of shit about the states in the South, but we are killing more people per capita than any state in the Deep South. So here are the top 5. We are number 5. The top 5 states where police kill the most people per capita are New Mexico, Alaska, Wyoming, Montana, and the good old Centennial State, Colorado. So you like me may be wondering what is it about those specific states? Why are we all in the top 5? And I think there's probably some different explanations for that. One very obvious one that people would point to would be the high rates of gun ownership in all of those states. We are the Wild West here. We do have some pretty our gun laws here are not super restrictive compared to a lot of other states. We have high rates of gun ownership, a pretty big gun culture out here, and the presence of a gun does significantly increase the likelihood. Like when you have contact with the police, if you have a gun, you are significantly more likely to be killed by the police than in incidents where you don't have a gun. Now, I want to be clear, you do have a Second Amendment right for now. You do have a Second Amendment right to have a gun. That does not make it your fault if you like it or not. This is the country we fucking live in. People are armed to the teeth. Just because you have a gun doesn't mean you should be shot, but that could somewhat explain why we have a higher rate of police killings. But what I think, my little Constant Gardener take, is what do all those states have in common besides the gun ownership? We got a lot of Indigenous and Native American people in all of those states. And Indigenous people are significantly more likely to be killed than the general population. So, for example, here in Colorado, Native American and Black people here in Colorado are about 4 times more likely to be killed by the police than white people. And then Black people in the U.S. were 2.9 times more likely than the general population to be killed by cops in the past decade plus. So Colorado is actually significantly worse than the national average there in terms of like racist killing of Black people. So like, don't for one set, like we are a progressive state, whatever. We have a lot of good things going for us in terms of trans rights and abortion rights, things like that. But like, don't ever kid yourself about whether or not we are racist in this state. And just don't kid yourself there. So, here, Bug, do you want to share a couple more of these stats so it's not just
yeah. I actually was gonna point out, like, in the statistics I was looking at earlier, it was all between like 2015 and 2025, and there were 84 critical instances between police and civilians, which is when shots are fired. And there were only 2 instances that involved indigenous people, and both of those men were shot and killed.
Sure.
Both of them, like they're 2 for 2 on that. So that's 100% of Native people that were shot at by police were killed by them. But also, like, going back to the ranking and the national police killings, like, yeah, like, it's not just like significant indigenous populations, but like also like Hispanic populations and just South American people, which that's another one that, like, 22 Hispanic people were killed by Denver police in that 10-year period from 2015 to 2025. And that was out of 38 instances. So that's well over 50%. Which is really fucking bad. Like, that's really fucking bad.
Yeah, that's really bad. It's really bad, especially because we do have a majority white population here. So
yes.
We got a lot of data from this website called policescorecard.org. So if this is something you're interested in, highly recommend checking that website out. And there's just a lot of interesting, good information there that for you to dig into. So definitely, we'll share a little bit more about what we learned, but please get on there and start clicking because you can find a lot of good info.
Yeah, and I think they've looked at like, they look at more than just like major cities. They had a lot of information on there, and it's all like they pull all of their information from publicly accessible places that are like, it's police departments that are releasing this information, and then their team reviews it and aggregates it and then scores all of these police departments based on like the level of violence, their accountability practices, their funding, and their approach to law enforcement. So like, what are their arrest rates like for especially things like low-level crime and nonviolent crime, and how are they investigating things, which, like we talked about earlier, like, investigation's important because going with the very obvious thing might lead you down the wrong path. Which
fucking cops, dude. They don't actually do shit. They don't do anything to like prevent or solve crime for the most part. They are just out here, shooting people's dogs and mentally ill teenagers.
Or mentally ill old people.
We found, interestingly enough, the lowest ranked police department by this website in the Denver metro area was fucking Westminster, of all places. Not like Westminster cops are great, but it just goes to show, right? Like, Aurora is, national drunk driving champs. They're the ones that are often in the news for their extremely egregious behavior. But like, fucking Parker and Westminster and North Glen are out here sucking as well. So don't, if you live in a suburb of Denver, this is the kind of shit that you can and should be aware of. Look up, if you live in Westminster, look up all that data, start, calling the police department and bothering them about why the fuck they suck so bad. Start letting all of your neighbors know. Go to your city council meetings and demand to know why your police suck so bad. Like, these are things, you're not going to get the police to stop sucking, but no. I think the more that you can make sure that your neighbors know how bad the police suck, the better. Because a lot of people don't know this shit, and people have this idea. Like that article the Bennito article, the victim of the assault, which, like, to be fair, again, we don't support assaulting people, especially not like old people. But this lady was like, well, we're never coming back downtown again because the crime has gotten so bad down here. And like, it's understandable why, if you're the victim of a crime, you would think, oh, the crime has gotten so bad down here. But actually, that article itself says that violent crime in the city is down by 3% this year. So like, statistics are important. I mean, people don't always believe them or they don't always resonate, but it is really important to be, you know, no matter what you're like seeing on the news, violent crime is actually down. So shut up. I guess it's my extremely empathetic take on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for people to stay aware of these kinds of statistics and of these things. I remember a few months ago, up in North Glen, because I live in the North Metro, the North Glen Police Department pulled over and arrested, or tried to arrest, a 19-year-old Mexican boy. And the reason they gave is that he matched the description on a robbery that had happened at the gas station, like right up the road from where they pulled him over earlier that day. But the man who was caught on camera, like the man they were looking for, and the fucking suspect description was a middle-aged white man.
Right. It's
So
matched the
bald-faced
description.
lie.
Match the description. Like, you ask
Yeah.
any fucking black person who's been pulled over erroneously, and you know, they're always saying people quote unquote match the description.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, how did you confuse a Latino teenager for a middle-aged white man? Like, be
Yeah.
so fucking serious. It's completely unacceptable. You're so bad at your fucking jobs. And especially lately, I'll get up on my soapbox about this, but the city of Denver is having a massive budget deficit, and they are cutting a shit ton of city jobs. A shit ton of people are about to lose their jobs. They're having to do furlough days. And guess who's not getting any cuts at all? No layoffs, no furlough days, nothing. You don't have to guess, because it's fucking DPD. So it's like, as our economy takes a shit, you know, all of our cities are cutting these valuable services and laying off our useful government workers. The police suck at their jobs, and they never get cut. Like, don't listen to anybody who tries to tell you, oh, the police are bad at their jobs now because we defunded them. We did not defund them. In fact, DPD gets a budget increase every single year, and they have, you know, in perpetuity. There's never been a time when they've had a budget decrease, which isn't true of basically any other city department. So don't let them fucking bullshit you. You know, it's like they're going to cut all of these services that we actually want and need, and just keep giving money to cops who don't fucking, you know, who not only harass and kill, you know, disabled people and indigenous people, black people, Latino people, they also do not fucking solve crimes. So that, I thought, was an interesting statistic that you pulled, Bug, about unsolved homicides and the demographics of the victims.
Yeah. Fucking, like, the differential between homicide cases that involve black victims and homicides that involve white victims is 8%. Like, they solve 8% less crimes or homicides that involve black people being murdered. Which, like, that's a pretty big margin.
So they're, you know, they're out here victimizing black people, and they're not investigating or, you know, not solving cases where black people are the victims. So, wow, the police are fucking racist. Breaking fucking news. So I want to talk a little bit too about, in 2020 here in Colorado, we you know, we had the, well, in the United States, it was the you know, greatest civil rights movement, greatest social uprising in United States history. Maybe you heard about it, maybe you participated in it. I sure did. But we had at that time, you know, I believe we still do, Democratic majority in our state legislature, both in the House and the Senate. And we also had, you know, our fucking stupid, useless governor, Jared Polis. And so we here in Colorado passed very kind of landmark sweeping police reform legislation back in 2020, and it was a big fucking deal because, you know, not a lot of states have done this. So that was Colorado Senate Bill 217. And so here is a list of the things that it did. They banned chokeholds. Side note, Elizabeth Epps spoke to that about how, like, the cops who are choking people out don't need like more training to not choke people out, right? Like, if you're the kind of fuck who wants to choke people out, we're not going to like train that out of you. So the idea that like the police would need more training to stop choking people to death,
you should just know it's fucking wrong,
right? Like, you either think it's okay to choke people out or you don't. It's pretty fucking simple. But yeah, so technically they can't do chokeholds anymore. It limits the use of deadly force, especially when someone is retreating. So officers here are now legally required to intervene and report when they witness another officer using excessive force. So no more of that thin blue line shit. In theory, if you see your partner beating the shit out of a suspect or, whatever, you have a legal duty to stop them and to report the incident afterward.
Which I would like to point out that on police scorecard, they're in the 0 percentile on upholding and investigating complaints of excessive force against the DPD. But literally the zero, like, they are the worst in the like comparison against all of the other cities above 250,000 people is what this is what that specific stat is based on. They are on the 0 percentile.
Right. So it's like, so you can file an excessive force complaint, they'll investigate it, and they'll, surprise, find that they did nothing wrong. They don't give a shit. But so again, this is in theory, and we'll talk about that after I about how none of this fucking matters. But so the big one was that they eliminated qualified immunity. So that means that if a cop violates your civil rights, that you can actually take the individual officer to court and sue them for up to $25,000. I didn't realize there was a $25,000 limit. That seems fucking low to me, considering how much cops make. It should be a life-ruining amount for the cop, quite frankly. But we are one of the few states that does not have qualified immunity for police officers. And we can thank SB 217 for that. They also did mandated reporting. So it mandates that law enforcement agencies report all use of force incidents resulting in serious injury or death to a state agency, and that includes demographic information. Now, I just read an article. It was an interview with Serena Gutierrez Gonzalez, who is my Senate rep, I believe. Shout out to her. She's really great. And she was saying, basically, it's something like only 57% of the law enforcement agencies in Colorado are complying with this. So it's the law. They have to report, but they're just not fucking reporting. And it's like, well, what is the state doing about that? I don't know that the law had any type of provisions for like what are the consequences if you don't. In theory, they could be put under a consent decree like Aurora, but I don't think that has happened. So like, what the fuck is the point of requiring mandated reporting when, like, again, the cops are a violent gang that just does whatever the fuck they want. They're above the law. The law says they have to report. They don't care. They just refuse to report. And whoever, I'm sorry, I don't know. I think this was a CPR, Colorado Public Radio article. But they, called a bunch of these departments for comment and they just didn't call back. It's like they're accountable to no one. It's fucking garbage. One of the laws from SB 217 that you may be familiar with as a protester is that it restricted the use of tear gas and rubber bullets during protests and requires warning before deploying. So before you got gassed in the face, you may have heard them on a loudspeaker telling you that you need to, this is an unlawful assembly, and they're telling you that you need to leave or they're going to tear gas you. But as we all know, they will tear gas people as they're leaving when they're actively trying to leave the scene. I will say I do think I noticed a pretty big difference between 2020 and now in terms of like when they will deploy the less than lethal munitions, quote unquote. And like, I do think it was a harm reduction measure and it reduced harm a little bit. Was it enough? No, but here we are. It also grants the state attorney general power to investigate and prosecute police departments and officers for civil rights violations. And it requires the release of body camera footage to the public in most circumstances within a specific time frame. I believe that's body camera footage from like a police shooting. They have to release it within a certain time frame. But police departments are, little lawbreakers, and so they've found various ways around this. I know that recently someone was killed by, I believe, the Douglas County Sheriff in Highlands Ranch. And they released that footage, but it was redacted and like heavily edited, and they made some like overproduced explanation of why they had to, they're just on some bullshit. And again, like, what are the consequences for these departments not fully complying with this? I will say that I think Denver is pretty good about releasing that shit. For what it's worth, I do think that they are. But like, again, people are always yapping about police reform and how we need to that we can reform them by requiring body cameras. Well, they've been requiring body cameras. I think they've been requiring body cameras for like 20 fucking years in this state. And what difference does it make? It certainly hasn't reduced the number of people that the cops have shot and killed.
Yeah.
Also,
and they have to turn their body cameras on.
Yes.
And like I recently, like literally, I think leaving the Rage Against the Regime protest, there was a man sleeping on the Capitol lawn because, you need to fucking sleep as a human being. And 3 state troopers drove from one side of the Capitol over to the other side of the Capitol to go harass this man. You could tell from their body language they were ready to start a physical altercation, and I was standing there recording them and observing in case they did. And like 2 minutes in, I watched one of them turn their body camera on. Like didn't have his body camera on the whole fucking time, only turned it on halfway through the altercation. And ultimately, like, the man just got up and left, but like they were ready to start some shit, and they were not recording.
A homeless person at the lowest point in their life where they're having to fucking sleep outside, and that is what our tax dollars do for this person. We don't do shit except provide a cop to come and harass and yell at them, arrest them, shoot them. And yeah, they turn their fucking cameras off. I have mutuals with a really cool public defender on Twitter who is always talking about this, about how they turn their cameras off, or how, when he goes to, for discovery in a case, when he wants to get the body camera footage, it's like the footage that he needs is always missing. Or what they do is they do this like dump thing where they will give you, a whole week's worth of footage from that body camera. And then you, as the one public defender, have to try to like sift through it to find what you want. So that's another thing that they do, is like they do like malicious compliance, where they will just give you too much body camera footage so that it's, and public defenders have like a crazy high caseload, and it's really hard for them to try to get the information that they need. So like, I would say the law should say like they're not allowed to turn off their body camera basically for any fucking reason. And it's like, well, whatever, if they need privacy, too fucking bad. People work retail, people work at 7-Eleven don't get to turn their security cameras off, so go fuck yourself. But whatever, this shit is not fucking reformable, I think, is the point. Is like they feel that they are above the law because they're above the law. And like, the body camera shit, I guess, helps the public see who they are more, but like if they can turn it off and turn it on at will and redact it and lose the footage or whatever the fuck ever, what's the point? Yeah. So like, yes, it's cool. We have this, we have a better, in theory, more accountability for police in this state than it is in a lot of states. But still, it's, people aren't getting fired. People aren't losing their jobs when they don't comply with this law. So what the fuck is the point, I guess? Yeah. But so there are, for every single one, I really want to emphasize every single one of these numbers that we have, is a person, is a human being with a life and a family, and their life was taken from them. They're not just numbers, they're people. And so like we're going to go over a few of these cases, but like it breaks my heart that there are all these people that have been killed, and most of their names will, most people will never know their name, or their family suffering. Real quick, I just wanted to say, speaking of the numbers, since 2020, I've just got some data on Colorado police killings. In 2020, they killed 46 people. Cops killed 46 people in the state of Colorado. 2021, it was 42. So that's what, like maybe a 10% decrease. 2022, it was 41. 2023, it was back up to 47. In 2024, it was 40. And they've killed 25 so far this year. So like not any meaningful, it has not resulted in any meaningful decrease in police killings for what it's worth. And I think it's important just to know that like it's cool we have the reforms, but the cops are still shooting and killing people, or running them over with their cars and whatnot. So with that, we'll talk about a few of these cases with the understanding that there are so many more that we would like to cover, and that we will hopefully cover in future episodes, and more, even maybe go more in depth with some of these. So this is kind of a landmark case in terms of DPD killings, and this is what some people in retrospect have referred to as Denver's George Floyd moment. I don't know if I would go that far because it didn't provoke the type of outrage that George Floyd's killing did, but it was a big deal when it happened. I lived here in 2003, and I do remember. So this was the killing of Paul Childs. It was July 5th of 2003. So Paul was a Black 15-year-old developmentally disabled boy who was legally blind and had seizures. He often, had his family really struggled with caring for him and his symptoms, and they had called the police like 47 times before this incident in which he was killed. And it's just a shame, I'll editorialize here. It's a shame that there's nobody to call. Like, it would be great if we could. I guess we do now. We have the STAR program. So like there is something, it would be nice if we could call somebody when we have a family member that's like having a mental health crisis or something, that doesn't come out with a gun. It would be nice if you could call for help and not have to weigh whether or not your loved one might get shot when you call for help. But we don't live in that world. So Paul's mother called the police because he was following her around the house with a knife. And family later said that they weren't like in fear for their lives that he had the knife. They just didn't know what to do, and they needed help. They needed outside help. So they called the cops. Officer James Turney fatally shot Paul when he came in the house, and Paul slowly moved towards Turney without dropping his knife. So again, a knife versus a gun, and like you're supposed to be trained. Like if you have to shoot somebody, shoot them in the leg, for God's sake. Like, use a taser. It's like they go straight to the fucking lethal force. In other countries, when people have a knife, the cops don't just shoot them. Like, they have other means of, neutralizing people without fucking killing them. I just think that point needs to be made. So Paul's autopsy showed multiple gunshot wounds. So this motherfucker lit up a 15-year-old boy, a 15-year-old disabled, legally blind boy, lit him up with multiple gunshots and fucking killed him. That cop, Turney, received a 10-month suspension, no criminal charges, and incidentally, that motherfucker had also killed a hearing-impaired teenager a year prior to killing Paul. So he has killed 2 disabled teenagers in the span of 2 fucking years. And, a 10-month suspension, no criminal charges. Redacted is how I feel about that. I'm not going to say how I feel about that. Fuck the police with my whole chest. Paul's family received a $1.3 million settlement in 2004. The cost of the, that's what their loved one's life was worth. I guess, to the city. Paul's murder resulted in major protests. It got nationwide attention, and it resulted in the creation of Denver's Office of the Independent Monitor, which in theory sounds good. It's a civilian oversight board that investigates the police and their bullshit. However, it is a toothless entity that is limited to, quote, making recommendations. So they can't actually do shit. All they can do is be like, yeah, I think they did in 2020. They were like, yeah, the cops really violated a lot of people's civil rights in 2020. Beyond, they're not charging anybody. I mean, it's still up to the DA, and whatever the powers that be to decide if they're going to charge. So it's like basically all, like so many of the city of Denver's fucking agencies, their whole thing is just like filing, making recommendations and compiling reports. Hooray.
But that's nothing.
No, nothing.
Like, did any of those cops in 2020 actually get charged with shit? Because we paid out millions in the fucking settlements. But yeah, so it's like, what does it actually fucking do?
Yeah, DPD, no. APD, yes, but we will talk about that when we get to it. So yeah, that was Paul Childs. Rest in peace to him, and hearts go out to his family. I'm sure it is not any easier 22 years later, especially because they called the cops. I can't imagine the guilt, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault that that's what happened, and they just didn't have the resources, and they called for help, and what they got was several bullets in their kid. I mean, I just, my heart breaks for them. And I don't know if Officer James Turney still works for DPD. It's been 20 years. He's probably retired and has a fat pension that the rest of us could never hope to get. So the next one is Frank Lobato, which was July 11th, 2004. This one sticks out to me because I remember it. This is, for me, the first time where I really had awareness of the fact that the cops are just out here killing people for no goddamn reason. And I remember being so outraged by this as a 19-year-old who wasn't even particularly locked in or political, and certainly not an abolitionist at that point. So this was, Frank Lobato, July 11th, 2004. So Frank Lobato was a 63-year-old disabled Latino man. He was at home, lying in bed watching TV. The officers were looking for his nephew. They broke into his house and shot him, killed him in his bed, and they claimed that he had a gun. And that's why they had to shoot him. It was later discovered that he had a soda can. Not a gun, a soda can. And there was some debate later about, like, did the officer go in with his finger on the trigger? Which, like, if you've had any type of firearms safety training, that's poor trigger discipline. There's no fucking excuse for that shit. You don't fucking put your finger on the trigger until you are ready to pull it. If you are not going to pull it, you don't put your finger on the trigger. And this is not something that I, a gun noob, should have to explain to a fucking cop. But here we are.
That's literally the first thing you learn.
Literally.
If you're being taught by somebody who actually knows a fucking thing about firearms, that is the first thing you learn when handling a gun.
Never, ever, ever put your finger on the trigger unless you are about to pull it. Even if the gun is not loaded, you just don't put your finger on the trigger until the second before you pull it. But here we are, he did. And the officer disputed that and said that he didn't go in there with his finger on the trigger, and like he really thought that the dude had a gun or whatever the fuck ever. So and so there were protests at the time that I believe it was no justice, no peace, fuck your racist police. I mean, it wasn't that, but it's just the same damn shit that we've been chanting for decades now, with no meaningful change. And I'm sick of it. Of course, the grand jury failed to indict the officer, or actually, I believe in that one, the grand jury even failed to hear the case. And the officer was suspended for 90 days, but that was later reduced to 50 days, and 40 of those were paid days off. So dude got 40 days of paid leave as a reward for shooting an unarmed, disabled man in his bed. Okay. The family filed a $10 million lawsuit and the city settled out of court. I don't know what the amount that they received was. Whatever it wasn't enough. And keep in mind, with all of these settlements that the city is making, that's coming out of our budget. I mean, I fully support, like, give all of our money to victims of police violence, but, like, you know, not only are they killing us, that's wasting our fucking money. We don't have money to be throwing away because the cops are murderous fucking pieces of shit, and it just whatever.
This needs to be coming from them, not from us.
Yes,
like,
yes.
We're not the ones out here shooting disabled teenagers and elderly folks.
Right. Like, you're getting paid with our money to go shoot and kill disabled people, and then we have to use our money to compensate their families because you are murderous pieces of shit. Like, yeah. It's bullshit. Some bullshit.
Yeah, I know. I remember the Paul Castaway was one of the first major cases I remember. I was 18 when that happened, when he was murdered, and he's another man. He was mentally ill, and they killed him for being mentally ill, and it's just such a fucking pattern here.
And I actually was feeling guilty because when we were getting this together, I realized that we did not include Paul Castaway in this workup, and I want to, because one of his family members is active on our subreddit. And yeah, Paul was a Native American. He was an indigenous man. He was mentally ill. He had a knife, and I believe he was holding the knife to his own throat. So this is another really cool thing that the cops do, is like, oh, you want to kill yourself? We'll just kill you instead. Like, what the fuck? I do not understand if you, first of all, how a mentally ill person holding a knife to their own throat is a threat to you. But if you're sure that it is, use a fucking taser, my guy. Like, or if you have to shoot them somewhere that's not in the chest or the head. I don't want them to be shooting people anyway, but it's like you shouldn't be using lethal force against a mentally ill person who's having a mental health crisis. But yeah, that I didn't do the full write-up about Paul Castaway, and so hopefully we will do that in a future episode, because I would like to talk quite a bit more about him. We just commemorated the 10-year anniversary of his murder by the police. So definitely heart goes out to his family as well. And we'll talk more about him on a future episode, because yeah, this is going to be an ongoing thing. Our next one is Elijah McClain, which is the one that probably most people are familiar with because his case got national attention. I'll preface this by saying that his mother has been pretty vocal about just not wanting his name on protest signs. At least that's how she felt 5 years ago. I don't know if it's changed. And what was really, his last words that he spoke, that was actually on the body camera footage, went viral because he, was essentially begging for his life and just saying that he was different and that he wasn't a threat. He's just different, which is heartbreaking. But she felt really bothered by how many people were putting those words on signs and the fact that she was having to like hear those words all the time. So I didn't want to get like too deep into Elijah, but I felt like it was something that we do need to cover it, because it was such a, it sparked so many protests, and there were actually some consequences for the cops involved. So we're going to at least go over a little bit. And hopefully this is not, hurtful to his family for us to discuss it. Elijah was a 23-year-old Black man who was detained by Aurora Police on August 24th, 2019, after some fucking Karen called 911 and reported, a black man looking sketchy. He was wearing a ski mask at the time, and it was hot out. It was August. And I think he had like a sensory issues, or like he had something where like he was more comfortable wearing a ski mask. But basically he was just vibing, walking home, I think from the gas station or something. And so like, make no mistake, white people, when you fucking call the cops on a black person for looking sketchy, that can result in that person's death, and you are fucking culpable for that. Don't fucking call the cops. I'm standing 10 toes down in this. I do not call the cops unless if someone is like actively shooting at me, or there is a life-threatening emergency where I like need EMS to come, or like something's on fire and that's my only option. I will call the police. I never ever will call because like I think somebody looks suspicious, or like literally unless I'm actively being shot at or someone is, stabbing me. I don't call them because I just don't want to inadvertently get someone shot.
I would like to point out he has anemia. He had anemia.
Okay.
So that's why he was wearing the mask, even though it was hot out. Is because
he was kind of, he got like cold because of anemia. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
So
and I would also like to point out that he's autistic, right? Like he was autistic. So he's another disabled man killed by the police here.
I mean, he definitely gave very autistic and neurodivergent vibes, but I think that's one of the things that his family never confirmed and like didn't really want people to say. But he as a neurodivergent myself, he was very, very, very autistic coded. And I think, and that's part of the reason I think why the lady thought he was sketchy is because he was like maybe moving differently than like a neurotypical person would move. Like the way he walked or whatever was different. And that's what he said when they were killing him was, I'm just
as a neurodivergent person, I've heavily related to what he was saying. So
for sure. I mean, it's heartbreaking, and that's where like the tough thing I think about this case is just like, we want to, it's like he is his own person and what he meant to the community. And that's also separate from his family and like how they want things discussed, and sometimes those things are in conflict, but I mean, I do, he was, and it doesn't, the really tough thing about Elijah is that he was like, I think part of the reason that this case got so much national attention was because he was like a quote unquote perfect victim. Like he played his violin to kittens at the animal shelter. He was an extremely gentle, loving, beautiful soul. And so, I think it's extra heartbreaking to lose someone like that. But I think part of the narrative around it that kind of bothers me is like, people, like the next person that we're going to talk about, like was actually had a warrant out for his arrest. It doesn't matter, like
he's still a human. We all have the right to life.
And the cops do not have the authority to be, judge, jury, and executioner. I don't care if you're accused of a fucking crime. The cops shouldn't just be able to fucking execute you like that. But Elijah was particularly egregious because he just did not have a violent bone in his body, and he was like such a gentle soul, and probably also disabled. And I don't know what the rate, I didn't look this up before, but definitely disabled people are at a much higher risk of police violence, as are trans people. So when the cops showed up, they detained Elijah. There was a scuffle. They said he had this kind of bullshit thing called excited delirium. He was illegally injected with 500 milligrams of ketamine, which is a fucking crazy dose. And he passed away 6 days later in the hospital. So that, to their credit, PSL was out in the streets protesting about Elijah's killing in 2019, back when there was not a lot of media attention around it, and they kept the pressure up. And then when George Floyd was murdered and, there was the big uprising and all the political, all the protests and news around that, the Elijah McClain case got a lot more traction, and we started having Elijah specific protests in Aurora, one of which was a violin vigil in which the police came out with smoke bombs in riot gear and, tear gassed, I think, a bunch of world-class violinists that had flown in to do a vigil for him. And it was truly, the vigil itself was one of the most powerful moments of my entire life. I get chills just thinking about it. And, if you were part of 2020, it's like a distant memory, but like, I hope we can remember, I guess, I hope we can channel those vibes, because that was a time. And I am very grateful. I hate that we lost Elijah, but like, he really, I think I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you know, I hope that we, did his memory and his legacy some justice, with the actions that we took and with the vigil and everything. So the big difference with this case is that people were charged in his killing. Cops were charged, and this never fucking happens. They do not get charged. Oh, that was the thing I wanted to say, I think, earlier about like the grand jury not indicting the officer, is like the joke, or the inside joke or whatever with lawyers, is that like a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich if the DA wants them to. So like anytime a grand jury doesn't indict, it's because the fucking prosecutor did not didn't want them to indict, basically. Like, if it's essentially a formality, but also all the proceedings of a grand jury are secret, so nobody knows like what's said. It's actually a very unethical and shady practice that Elizabeth Epps has spoken out about in length. But they did indict 3 officers and 2 EMTs. So the officers were Rodema, Rosenblatt, and Woodyard were all charged with criminally negligent homicide. And various other charges. The 2 EMTs were Cooper and Sichuniak. I don't know how to say his name. I don't really care. They were all charged in Eliza's death. So Rodema was the only cop that was convicted. He was convicted of criminally negligent homicide and 3rd-degree assault. He was sentenced to 1 year and 2 months in jail. Rosenblatt and Woodyard were found not guilty. Thumbs down to the jury. You guys fucked that up. Cooper, one of the EMTs, was convicted of criminally negligent homicide. He was sentenced to 4 years of probation and 100 hours of community service. And Sichuniak was convicted of criminally negligent homicide, 2nd-degree assault resulting in death, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison, which was a mandatory minimum. However, his sentence was later reduced to 4 years probation. So nobody did a lot of time on this one. Nobody did a lot of time. No surprise there. But the fact that they were even charged was kind of a big deal. Because as you saw in some of those older cases, typically they're getting a paid vacation. They're not even getting, they're getting no consequences whatsoever. So the family filed a civil rights lawsuit, and they got a $15 million settlement. So that's a lot of money. Good, not even coming close to, nothing can replace your loved one, for sure. But as a result of that, of Elijah McClain, and just again, as I mentioned, Aurora PD, nationwide drunk driving champs. I don't know how, like, multiple Aurora officers have gotten DUIs on the clock in fucking police vehicles, dude. Like, they are a fucking hot mess over there, even for cops. And so I think but I do think the Elijah case was probably a pretty big factor in this. So they actually got put under a consent decree with the Colorado Attorney General on November 22nd in 2021. So a consent decree is basically when either the federal government or the state government says, like, you guys are fucking up so bad that like we have to kind of take over, and you don't really get to like run your own shit for a while. And so the reasons given for the consent decree were addressing racial bias in policing, constitutional policing, the use of chemical restraints. That's a direct Elijah call out. Recruitment, hiring, and promotion, and accountability and transparency. So they are still, as of today, they are still currently under that consent decree. Now, whether or not that will make any difference remains to be seen. I'm going to go ahead out on a limb and say it probably won't. So the last one we're going to talk about tonight is very recent. And that is the killing of Kilyn Lewis on May 23rd of 2024. Kilyn Lewis was a 37-year-old Black man who was shot and killed by the Aurora Police SWAT team officer Michael Dickey. I don't know how to say it. We're going to say Dickey. Kilyn was wanted in connection with a shooting, and APD was attempting to arrest him. So again, whether he committed the crime or not, we don't know. It doesn't really fucking matter, though, because even if he was guilty of whatever crime they were trying to arrest him to, he has a right to fucking due process. And due process is not a cop executing you in the street because you quote unquote didn't comply. So the officers claimed he pulled out a gun, but you're sensing a pattern here. It's like they see anything, they claim it's a gun. It was actually a fucking cell phone. He had a cell phone and fruit snacks in his hand. And they said it was a gun, and they fucking shot and killed him. The DA declined to press any charges against Dickey, but he has been removed from the SWAT team. And his family has filed a lawsuit. I believe they filed it this year. So that is ongoing. And his widow, Anndrec, has been really vocal in trying to bring awareness to her husband's killing. And so we are hoping at some point to actually do an interview with her to have her tell you all more about Kilyn and, his life and death and what's going on with the lawsuit. So stay tuned for that. We're hopeful that we're going to be able to work that out. And yeah, on that note, that is what I have for police killing in the state of Colorado. It is by no means an exhaustive examination of it, but it is kind of an intro to just some of the more prominent cases. And I think the big takeaway is that Colorado is 5th in the fucking nation for cop killings, and that shit's gotta stop. Mm-hmm. So fuck the police, ACAB, all day, every day. Constant Gardner out.
God. Yeah, and that's just 4 people whose lives have been stolen by state violence.
Right. And every single one of these numbers has a story and a life and a family and these are people. These are precious lives, and it doesn't have to be this way. This type of killing by the police is very much a U.S. thing. I mean, cops are pieces of shit and bastards all over the world, but, and I don't have the stats for this off the top of my head, but cops are not killing people at anywhere near the rates in other countries that they are killing people here in the U.S. And police cannot be reformed. They must be abolished. So yeah, abolition now.
I watched a video earlier of a man probably in his 50s at a protest. This was at a protest in the UK, a Free Palestine protest, and the police were arresting an elderly woman who looked like she was probably in her 70s. And this man was like hitting the police, like not like punching, like, I mean, it was open fist, like flat hand, like very, very much what you would expect of like a heavy-set middle-aged white man fighting police. And they were, essentially like the protesters were trying to de-arrest this woman, but I don't think they really knew how, and they weren't quite courageous enough. But like, I was just watching this man essentially slap the police, and I was like, if this was in the United States, this man would be on the ground with boots in his neck.
Absolutely.
Like...
But like, I'm not gonna say the things that I want to say. All I'm gonna say is that the French are kind of annoying, but they don't play that shit with their cops, and we could probably stand to learn a thing or two from them. And yes, our cops are more violent, but that just means that we need to fight harder for our rights. So yeah, with all that said, we'll, this is it on Colorado police killing for now, but stay tuned because we will definitely be talking about this subject quite a bit more.
Especially because we really need y'all to realize, the fence sitters who think the police can still be on our side, like, we need you to realize that they are not on our side. Like,
right. And like, you need to also, this is not a Trump thing. All right. Do not lib out on me and fucking try to tell me that this is a Trump problem. I don't care who the president is. I don't care who the governor is, the mayor. It doesn't fucking matter. These cops are out here killing, and it is all cops. And I'm glad that we're definitely seem to all be on the fuck ICE train, as a country. That's really heartening to see. But I definitely have seen the argument that's like, oh, well, the regular cops aren't ICE and they don't cooperate. No. Okay. The shit that you see ICE doing, regular cops do that shit and more and worse. Do not.
Yeah.
A cop is a cop is a cop, and they're all fucking bastards. Call back to that article earlier. ACAB absolutely includes RTD cops. All right. You guys are not, you are also
any kind of security, anything. Like,
yes.
You're a fucking
also
cop.
DAs, district attorney, you're a cop in a suit. Cops in suits. We fucking hate them.
Yeah. One of my favorite chants is La migra, la policía, la misma porquería, which means, like, immigration forces, the police, it's the same shit.
Correct.
Like, they're the same shit.
And it's in Spanish, so it's catchier. But yeah. All right. Well, we've been yapping for a while here, so we should probably wrap up and talk about some upcoming shit that we have going on this week.
So the vigil that'll be happening this Monday, for Jeanette outside of the fucking concentration camp that is known as the Geo facility in Aurora. That's being hosted by Community United in solidarity with Palestine and CD7 Watermelon. So it'll be very, internationally focused in terms of solidarity, which, like, it's all the same fucking fight. Like, we love that. We love that intersectionality and solidarity. Some 5051 folks they've been doing these overpass protests, and they have one pretty much every day this week. I don't have, like, the time and location information because it's different and it's a lot of information, but they have the post on the subreddit. So go there and you can find those because those are a little more accessible for some people, just in terms of accessibility.
Yeah, those are cool because they're not all centrally located, so you might be able to find one that's, like, kind of out in the suburbs or closer to where you are, which is nice.
And then Denver Anti-War Action and the Colorado Palestine Coalition, which includes DSA, Jewish Voice for Peace, a lot of other organizations are organizing a pro-Palestine rally. They're calling for the siege to be broken and an end to the forced starvation campaign that Israel is doing against Palestinians. That'll be on this Thursday, on August 14th at 12:30 p.m. That's happening at 707 17th Street. So it's just right down the street from the Tabor Center, which is where Palantir is located, just as a reminder. And we're also seeing a couple of our Saturday protests are still happening. CD7 Watermelon is doing their peace vigil for Palestine. That's from 10 to 11 a.m. at 5250 Wadsworth Bypass. And they stand outside of the In-N-Out if you're looking for them.
It's across the street from the Costco, everybody.
Yep.
Across the street from your Arvada Costco.
Which sounds like some good visibility, especially for a Saturday morning. Hit those people heading to Costco early. I love it.
Yeah.
And then 5051 is apparently partnering with the Fox Takedown folks now. And those are 1 p.m. on Saturdays. at 100 Spear Boulevard, which is a Fox affiliate station. So I love that because, like, fuck Fox. It's not news. I don't care if you're just an affiliate. Like, just literally do anything
you're still
else.
platforming that garbage. So
yeah. The videos of, like, the compilation videos of, like, stations across the country all saying the same story with just, like, their local twist on it, like, but the same wording. It's fucking wild. Like, state propaganda, but it's not even by a state-run company. That's what we get for being an oligarchy, I guess. It is a state-run company.
Right, but it's all the state when it's just rich people running our lives into the ground. Hooray.
So that's it for this week. Coming up next week, there's a nationally or internationally, I think, like, day of action called the March Against Machines. Basically it's a stand against AI.
Down with the clankers.
Yes.
Down with the clankers.
So much interesting discourse around that term.
I know, right?
So unnecessary. Like, dude, it's a fucking robot. Clankers has been around for a long fucking time. It's from Star Wars. Like, I love that shit.
Like, first of all, it's from Star Wars.
Yeah. But yeah, so Down with the Clankers, March Against Machines, August 22nd. I think that's a Friday. At 4 p.m. and that's happening outside of Palantir's headquarters here in Denver. And then the following Friday, I know I've mentioned it already, but just want to remind everybody about the Chicano moratorium. It's the 55th anniversary of the first one. That'll be August 29th, 6 p.m. at the Capitol. We will be marching. It will be a wonderful evening of solidarity with our Chicano friends and community members. The chief demands of that protest are to stop the deportations and to end the GEO contract for their concentration camp in Aurora. So just want to keep bringing awareness to that. And yeah, that's everything I know of. It's coming up.
Everything upcoming. Okay. Also, a little bird told me that there may be a national or international mobilization on Tuesday for Palestine. So nothing has been released about that yet, but keep your eyes and ears open. Another thing I wanted to plug is Kilyn Lewis's widow, Anndrec. She is dealing with a lot of financial instability and she's struggling and she really needs some help. So if you are in a position to, like, throw $20 her way, do some mutual aid, we would love for you to do that. You can send her some money on Cashapp and we will put her Cashapp handle in the show notes, so you could help her out. And yeah, hopefully we'll have her on the show here in a couple weeks. I would have mentioned it earlier, but I was just waiting for her to get back to me and say if it was okay for us to plug her Cashapp and just her, let people know that she's in need of financial help right now because, her husband was brutally murdered by the cops. So we'll put her Cashapp in the show notes if you guys want to donate to that. And then the last thing is that we have to thank our sponsor of the week. We just love our sponsors so much. We couldn't do it without you guys. So this week's episode of the Denver Protest Podcast is sponsored by Jared Polis's Bridge to Nowhere. Jared Polis's Bridge to Nowhere, an abysmal failure, a waste of $29 million. What the fuck? Thank you so much for sponsoring the Denver Protest Podcast, Jared Polis. And you know what? If 95% of people in Colorado said that they hated my idea for a bridge to nowhere, I'd fucking kill myself. Okay? So you're putting that out there, Jared Polis. You're a fucking loser. And we're coming for your ass on threat.
the brigading has been
all day,
ongoing.
every day on thread.
It's glorious.
I know the person who runs our threads has his foot on Jared Polis's neck, and we hope he leaves it there. Definitely be, don't ever miss the opportunity to harass Jared Polis about the concentration camps in Colorado that he is pretending are not in the works. And we will certainly be having more information about that as that campaign rolls out. Speaking of threads, you should follow us there. You should follow us on all of the social media. We're on Reddit, we're on Discord, we're on Blue Sky, we're on Threads, we're on Instagram. And you can find links to all of that at denverprotests.com. Thank you so much for listening to this extremely long episode. We hope you enjoy listening as much as we enjoy making it. We just appreciate you all so much.
Truly. I love this project and I love our community.
Me too. We hope to see you guys out in the streets and on Jared Polis's Threads account harassing him. Okay. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Fuck the police. We'll see you next week.
Love
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.